All right, the draft is over, but the fun continues. Let's go inside the locker room. Lot to talk about. Money-making opportunities, more pressure, more dialogue. The fun continues in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize. Every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop. Won't stop.
All right, so we made it through the draft, and now the real fun begins. There's a lot of stuff to get into. There's a lot of talking points. The schedule is coming out in about 9 days. The NFL is going to put that out. Should be interesting to see who the Texans play first. I would think Indianapolis, Carolina, or Cleveland would be my choice. But who knows? It is the locker room number one source for daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You're going to be Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610, 10 to 2 Central on the Odyssey app. So we have a few things to get into here. And if you're new, just get in on the comments. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. Las Vegas has spoken. They have some interesting things about the Texans draft. You have talk about expectations, nightmare situations for the Texans when it comes to the trade that they made, which I think the national media is missing big time. But my first thing I want to get into was just I was about to call it a pep rally, the press conference. So story one, the press conference with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. And I thought this was interesting because the innocence of CJ Stroud and just the firm kind of presence of Will Anderson, I think it balances out very nicely. I think that as far as getting two faces of the franchise with kind of differing personalities, I think there's a nice element to it. It was a damn shame that this press conference was on Saturday because I feel like it kind of got buried between the draft and people basically living their lives and going through the weekend. But we did some lab work and we compressed just CJ's part with the questions and stuff. And then we did a little bit of Will's, and I think you might enjoy it if you go back on the Odyssey app and check it out. We did it at noon today. You can rewind on the Odyssey app and check that out. CJ Stroud's it's funny. He did everything from, he shouted out the McNair kids. He talked about how Bryce Young had kind of bullied him about how long his nails were. So he said that he'd gotten a couple manicures because of that. He talked about being right behind LeBron in Ohio when you're the Ohio State quarterback, which is true. He tried to give Nick Caserio his flowers. There's just a lot of innocent moments with CJ Stroud that I think are going to be fun for the social media department and fun for the fans. I think there's some likability and some excitement to it. And I would just go check it out. Asking if I like CJ or not. I've never disliked CJ as a guy. I think he seems like a really, really good young guy. I've been talking about that for a long time. I was down with the possibility of not taking a quarterback at 2. I was down with that. I think they were down with it too, and they decided to go package deal with CJ and Will. And I think it's really going to depend on, from like an on-field perspective. I think it's going to it's really just going to come down to Bobby Slowick, because we've seen coordinators in this system do some good things. We don't know much about Bobby Slowick, so I'm assuming that one of the voices that wanted CJ Stroud really bad, I'm assuming and would think that one of them was Bobby Slowick. And if Bobby Slowick thinks he can work with him in this system, with Bobby Slowick, the new offensive coordinator's film grasp and all that type of stuff, you got to think that would be a good thing. Bobby Slowick, though, is still kind of a mystery. And that's kind of the situation I think a lot of people can relate to as we go to the next story. We don't know Bobby Slowick. I did not buy in on Pep Hamilton last year. I was glad to see Tim Kelly leave. But if you listen to the show all last year, and I think I said it when I started the locker room, we started this on September 8th of last year. My question of the offseason was, what the hell is a Pep Hamilton offense? Because I had no idea. And I don't think a lot of people knew what a Pep Hamilton offense was. We know what the Bobby Slowick system is. We're still going to figure out if Bobby Slowick's a good play caller. We're going to figure out if he has a good feel. We're going to figure out if he's good at working with quarterbacks. We don't know about Bobby Slowick. It's a major mystery. And if Bobby Slowick is able to maximize what he's got to work with, it could be a game changer. But when we see, Tank Dell drafted, or we see CJ Stroud drafted, or you see Xavier Hutchinson drafted, I think naturally, because you're used to the offense being a certain way, even when the personnel was good, because you're a Texans fan and because you follow this team, you don't think, well, they're going to maximize this guy. I think we're still getting used to that. And unless you just want to have blind faith in Bobby Slowick, which I'm not going to have blind faith in anyone, it's at the very least a mystery, and your mind is just kind of trained, just like a lot of people, because of the sins of the past, have kind of pessimism when they talk about the Texans. I think naturally whenever, you get a guy like Tank Dell that, needs to be utilized the right way, or a quarterback like CJ Stroud, you just kind of wonder, what's it going to look like in this offensive system, and what is this guy going to be? And it's going to be a first-time play caller. So we've talked about going through growing pains. You're going to go through growing pains with CJ. You're going to go through growing pains with D'Amico. You're probably going to go through some growing pains with Bobby Slowick, because you haven't seen Bobby Slowick's never called plays. So it's going to be a ride or die type of thing. And maybe they're all going to figure out how to get the job done. J. Lou, keep the comments coming. Subscribe, like. I'm enjoying the excitement. He says if they can work with Brock Purdy, then CJ should be good. The one thing I would say about that is that I think Christian McCaffrey had a little bit to do with that, along with Deebo Samuel. And I don't think the Texans have Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. I don't even know that they have Brandon Ayuk. And they damn sure don't have George Kittle, although Dalton Schultz is a really good receiving tight end. So that would be my only pushback there. I know we focus on the quarterback and we talk about, Brock Purdy went 5-0 and then won a playoff game and ended up getting hurt in the conference championship game, won a couple of playoff games. I would say Christian McCaffrey and Deebo and Ayuk and Kittle kind of helped with that. So, yeah, I mean, you can work with them, but the weapons right now, if you ask me the weakness of this team right now, I would say the playmakers on the outside and, in the backfield. I like Dameon Pierce. Singletary's okay. But I don't think they're, taking it off the top like that. Function says Nico Collins turns the corner and becomes, I'm assuming you mean wide receiver 1 this year. I love Nico. I love his work ethic, like his body of work. We've had him on the show a couple of times. Literally the last guy to leave every week every day at training camp last year. He just can't stay healthy, and the consistency is not there. Now, a lot of that might have had to do with the quarterback, and I am intrigued to see who CJ Stroud is going to, get his chemistry working with. There's a few options, but I don't know if Nico's going to be a wide receiver 1. I think he could maybe turn into a good wide receiver 2. I just don't. I'm not seeing the Nico Collins turning into a wide receiver 1. But if it happened, hey, I'd be really excited about that. Next story. The national media is kind of being weird about the way in which they're talking about this trade. And I saw the guy from The Ringer. I saw Mina Kimes. And I've seen a lot of people, some listeners, talk about, what the Texans gave up for Will Anderson. Hell, I was just at the dog park and someone was having this discussion with me. I think it needs to be made clear that the Texans looked at this as a package deal. D'Amico Ryans in his press conference, and this is why I didn't think they were going to take CJ Stroud, because I don't think they were until this year or the week of the draft. But D'Amico Ryans himself said in the press conference when asked about the move that they wanted to get their guys. And I truly believe that had they just made one pick at 2, I think there's a very strong chance that it was Will Anderson. And then they would have adjusted. But as soon as they realized that they could get CJ Stroud and they could lower the trade value of CJ Stroud by taking him at 2, and then you can trade up for Will Anderson or trade up for Will Anderson, I think that's what they did. And I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere. I think that logical thinking will tell you that. And that is why when people say, well, if the Texans finish with this record, then people they're going to regret trading all this for Will Anderson. My pushback is it really just depends on what CJ Stroud looks like. And quite frankly, if the Texans finish with the second worst record, which is what Las Vegas has them projected to do right now, which we'll get to in a sec, quite frankly, if CJ Stroud plays bad enough after they went with him at quarterback, then that's a problem, because that's going to mean that CJ Stroud played bad, and maybe you're looking at Drake, or you would have been looking at Drake May in the eyes. So it's all about the quarterback, and it was. I truly believe it was a package deal, and I think if you think about it, they wanted Will Anderson no matter what, and then when they were having the discussion, and we actually had a video about this weeks ago. When they were having the discussion, they decided we can get both, and we don't want to wait for a quarterback. So how CJ Stroud stacks up against these quarterbacks is what it's going to come down to. It's not going to come down to, oh, you traded this for Will Anderson. And that's where I think that they're at. Michael says Nico will be gone before the start of the season. I don't believe that. But there is a little bit more competition. E. Garcia, they are conditioned to hate on us. I'm assuming you're talking about the national media types. Frankfurt says package deal, or they had to take Stroud at 2 to keep the 3 pick cost. See, you get it. The national media doesn't really understand that. And I don't blame them. It's kind of like in an NBA trade. You know how the NBA, they don't announce their trades till the day after. And you have, a trade that's already agreed to, but the Hornets still draft Kobe Bryant. And you have some jamoke saying, well, Hornets drafted Kobe Bryant. Well, they actually traded the pick. And then they had to go up there and do it. Like we understand. We understand what the deal was. And it's all going to be about the quarterback. Let's put it this way. If CJ Stroud balls out, let's say CJ Stroud balls the hell out, and the Texans don't have a great season, but you feel good about your quarterback. See Deshaun in 2017, knocking on wood, no injury or anything like that, then you feel great. You feel great. That's what it's all about. It's all about the quarterback. So the national media types, I get it. I get that they're trying to, talk about you traded, this much for Will. They traded that much for CJ. It was a package deal. They wanted Will. They got CJ. They got both. It's all about the quarterback. It's not about trading that for an edge. Have some sort of nuance and figure some stuff out. I know the national dialogue is better, but let's use some common sense there. Next story. The win-loss total for the Texans is set at 5.5. I actually have a video on this. Now, I'm not one to just give betting advice, but I will say that if I were you, I would bet on the over. And allow me to explain why I would bet on the over. I would bet on the over because you've improved your roster in free agency. You've added probably 6, 7 new starters. Dalton Schultz, Robert Woods / maybe Noah Brown, Shaq Mason. You've added a couple of linebackers, Jimmy Ward and Sheldon Rankins. So you've added improved players through free agency, Devin Singletary too. You've added 2 guys you hope to make an impact in the draft, as well as some other guys, filled some holes, filled some needs. You have decent depth at quarterback and other spots, and you're in a division that's not one of the better divisions in football. You also play arguably the worst division in football in the AFC South. You have a new coach that's at worst still going to be better than your coach last year. And you traded your first-round pick, so you're not going to be tanking. I think there's a chance at the end of this season, there's going to be a lot of teams when you start listing these quarterbacks that are needed. You already have your quarterback, and your first-round pick is Cleveland's. So at the end of the season, last year how we saw Stingley and Pierce shut down, and there were some teams not trying to win, including what the Texans probably shouldn't have the last week. You're going to be trying to win every single game. So that's why I would say over 5.5 for the Texans. And we've seen really big improvements before. Again, we don't know what D'Amico is going to do, what Slowick's going to do. But if I were you, and I laid this out in detail in the other video, so go through, check that one out, and like it as well for the algorithm, as Texans Cap says. But I think you'll enjoy it. Next story. Another video that dropped today, the CJ Stroud connections. CJ Stroud in his draft class is connected to a lot of guys. And that's always the case with quarterbacks. They're always connected. Remember, RG3 was connected to Andrew Luck, Dan Marino, and John Elway are connected with Jim Kelly. There's always connections. CJ Stroud, even more so than most. You have Bryce Young going right before him. We all know about that drama. You have Anthony Richardson going 2 spots before him in the division. And then you have one of the faces of this draft, for better or worse, Will Levis, going to the old Oilers, a.k.a. the Tennessee Titans, and he's going to be in the division as well. So CJ Stroud's going to be connected to all these quarterbacks for a while. It would be in the Texans' best interest it would be in the best interest for the Texans to avoid having a top 5 pick so that he doesn't have to be connected to all this other stuff going on next year with the other quarterbacks. So CJ Stroud has a hell of a lot of connections. Again, another video on that as well, if you want to check it out. One of my biggest concerns about this team, and I've talked about this for a while, the state of the wide receiver. I know that you added Tank Dell, and I know everyone around here likes Tank Dell. I know CJ Stroud liked Tank Dell. And you added Hutchinson, who I wonder if Bobby Slowick had a strong opinion on Hutchinson, because in San Francisco, he was watching all that Brock Purdy tape, and it's impossible to not watch Brock Purdy tape without seeing Hutchinson, who's been an all-world Big 12 receiver the last couple of years. He absolutely lit Texas the hell up when they played this season. But still, the wide receiver position, when you look at it and you compare it to other situations, even just in the division, it's near the bottom of the league right now. There's not a lot of speed, and you don't know who's going to line up where. There's going to be a lot of position battles. The state of the wide receiver when it comes to this squad, that's something that I would really, really keep a close eye on. You hope Mechie's going to come back and be a productive player, although he's going to have to get his legs under him, and it was probably going to be a little bit of a learning process, a little bit of a learning curve for him last year. So don't want to expect too much from him. Don't know what you can expect from Nico Collins. Noah Brown has made some big plays for the Cowboys. Robert Woods had a good year last year for a medium-ish year for Tennessee last year, although it would have been one of the more productive receivers here. And you just have pretty decent concerns when it comes to the wide receiver position. Mr. High says maybe they're not worried about it because the tight end position is solid. I guess you have Dalton Schultz and Quintariano and Andrew Beck and maybe Brevin Jordan, although I would doubt that at this point. It would be a pleasant surprise if he came in and looked like a quality NFL player, but I think they're just didn't really. They decided to go with the Will Anderson, CJ Stroud package instead of, potentially getting the best receiver at 12, and at 33, they kind of lost that opportunity as well. So we'll see. People saying that CJ could maybe elevate the wide receiver group. That's what you would like to see. Also, there's going to be some quarterback friendly. If they're going to run this system the way that Shanahan runs it and the way that D'Amico talked about it at his first press conference, they're going to make it kind of easy for the quarterback at times and rely on the receivers to make plays. But again, are these wide receivers going to be able to make plays? They're better than last year's, especially when you factor in what you got from Cooks. And Cooks was pretty bad most of last year until he decided that he could stick it to old Nick and the McNairs. But we'll see what happens with the wide receiver crew. David's laughing. He says Xavier's college stats are fire Xavier over Nico. I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest thing. I don't know how ready Xavier's going to be. You're going to have to be able to block. Noah Brown kind of has the edge in that category because Noah Brown's a really good blocker at receiver. But Xavier coming in and doing his thing, maybe he is a pleasant surprise and he's pushing Nico. The reality is that Nico doesn't stay on the field, so you might not have to beat him out. You might end up getting on the field. It's the same concerns we had last year for Nico. Cebu says the Bengals got Burrow, then Chase. Maybe we can get Harrison next year. That would be the exact replica right there. I like where your eyes thinking that, or where your mind's at. Burrow gets his guy, and then CJ's reunited with his guy from college. Schedule release next week. So we're going to get a schedule release next week. Who knows what the NFL is going to do? There is precedent where Jameis Winston and Mariota, they played the last time, or I guess Wilson and Lawrence, that they didn't face off in week 1, but one of the last times that there was quarterback selected at 1 and 2, they played week 1. Mariota actually ended up kind of dominating that game, and he was kind of the talk. I wonder if the NFL is going to try to do that, or if maybe they would go second quarterback and fourth quarterback for the matchup. I just think Panthers week 1. I'm with Adam. I just think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to put CJ and Bryce head to head week 1. You guys know how the NFL is. The NFL, they know how to create drama. And hell, we're talking about a schedule release in 9 days. So I'm sure the NFL will figure something out. Primetime games, I would anticipate the Texans to get 1 primetime game, although 2 might not shock me. Maybe they could get 2 just because there is a little bit of buzz. There is some youth and a little bit of likability, but most likely it's going to be 1. 2 would not shock me. But one was inevitable the last, previous 2 years. So we'll see what happens there. Let's look at the positions, the most important position in the game in the division, and the state of the quarterback position in the AFC South, and just how interesting it is. So you have obviously one guy that you think is really good right now and trying to take the next step and become elite in Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is obviously the best quarterback in the division. But then you have Ryan Tannehill with Will Levis behind him. And I just wonder, is Will Levis going to take any time from Ryan Tannehill? Like, if Ryan Tannehill's healthy, first of all, if he's healthy last year, they win the division. Is Ryan Tannehill really being threatened right now? And the other factor is, given the fact that this is likely the last year of Ryan Tannehill, could Tennessee kind of look at a situation where they're just kind of not necessarily willing to take 2 steps back, but willing to look in that direction? And do we really think Will Levis 3 years from now is going to be the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans? I have my doubts. I think this is Zach Mettenberger type of stuff with Will Levis. I'm not high on him. I know there was talk about Will Levis. I think Josh Allen, aka Will Levis, is going to be bad. Anthony Richardson. The question is, with Anthony Richardson, is he going to start immediately? Gardner Minshew knows this system. Gardner Minshew played for Shane Steichen last year. There's talk about how raw Anthony Richardson is. Does that mean you just play him? Does that mean you bring him along slowly? That's going to be kind of $1 million question. It's going to be interesting to see how Shane Steichen handles that. If you're talking about the schedule, and the schedule does matter, and it shouldn't be minimized, you want to get the Colts early, because that's when Anthony Richardson will be going through his growing pains. Now, maybe you could say you want him later because Jonathan Taylor will be banged up. But I would say you want them early. So if you do get the Colts, week 1 or 2, I think you got them at the ideal time, because that's a situation where you got to think that AR-15 is going to have some struggles, and maybe DeMeco Ryans could make him uncomfortable and make him and make him struggle a little bit. Then you have the Jags, I already said, and you have the Texans with C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Stroud is going to be – there's people talking about Malik Willis. He stinks. There's a reason that they drafted Will Levis. But then you have C.J. Stroud, and you got to think, at the very least, you hope C.J. is maybe the 3rd best quarterback in the division. And if Ryan Tannehill is bad Ryan Tannehill, in a best-case scenario, maybe you hope he becomes – the 2nd best player in our quarterback in the division. Next topic. The jersey number mystery. So Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud have not picked jersey numbers yet. And 31 by Dameon Pierce. I don't anticipate Dameon Pierce giving up 31 to Will Anderson, which is what he wore at Alabama. He did wear some other numbers. I think there's been talk about maybe single digits. And C.J. Stroud at Ohio State rocked number 7. Number 7 right now is worn by the 2nd longest tenured Houston Texan on the current roster and the 2nd leading scorer in franchise history, Kaimi Fairbairn. What is going to happen with the jersey? Is C.J. Stroud going to buy the jersey? Is Fairbairn going to give it up? Is CJ going to go in a different direction? I was told that we will know next week what jersey numbers these two will wear. So it hasn't been decided yet. I know that there's other rookies, Bryce and Bijan Robinson, who've already gotten their numbers, but there's no official announcement yet. It should be coming next week is what I'm told. And we'll know whether or not CJ is going to rock the 7 or whether CJ is going to adjust. Someone's bringing up 0. 0 is already gone. That is Desmond King's number. So yeah, the Will Anderson go reverse 13. Not sure. I do wonder how married Kaimi Fairbairn is to 7. I know he's had it for a while, but you got to think maybe he would be willing to give that to the franchise quarterback, especially um, given everything he's been through. Next story, Nick Caserio and the stress reliever. I don't know if you guys saw that video that the Texans tweeted out after the draft where Nick Caserio just kind of had his legs up and he looked relaxed, kind of sounded relaxed as well. I wonder how relieved Nick Caserio is now that this draft is over. It was a process where in the middle of it, he had to get acclimated with a coach. Then they had to figure out how to communicate. Then they had to make tough Then they had to make tough decisions. Then they had to decide what they were going to do. Then he had to hear about all this drama and stuff. I wonder if Nick Caserio right now is just feels like he's gotten through the most difficult part of the transition. And if maybe Nick Caserio is probably a little bit more, I mean, he's always going to be stiff. He's always going to be Caserio. He's always going to be a little bit nerdy. But I wonder if Nick Caserio is just feeling a little bit better right now. And maybe we're getting like a different Caserio vibe. I think we'll hear from him on Friday with Sean and Seth. They're going to have him on, I think, at 7:30. That's the typical time. So we might hear something from Caserio. Hell, who knows? But yeah, we might get a different Caserio vibe. Some more questions and keep them coming. Subscribe, like all that type of stuff. 7 has prestige in Houston. Can have it be worn by a kicker. Well, it's been worn by a kicker for quite a while. J-Rock says Nick Caserio is definitely smoking a blunt and trying to relax. I doubt that very heavily. I doubt Nick Caserio has even smoked weed before. I bet maybe he's like rubbed some aloe on a post-workout or something like that. A lot of people thinking Will Anderson should go 11. The single number is an interesting way to go. Other people talking about 90. My question is this, and I was talking about this with my co-hosts, or Figgy and J-Lo. If you were buying a jersey, whose jersey would you buy? Would you buy Will Anderson's jersey or would you buy CJ Stroud's? That would be my question. I would go with the Anderson, just because I think he's going to be the face of this thing for 10 years. But I could definitely see people getting down. The CJ Stroud jersey is going to be popular. It's probably going to be the most popular. It's probably going to be one of the most popular jerseys in the NFL, quite frankly. When you factor in the Buckeye movement, when you factor in, just the fact that the Texans haven't had a quarterback for a while, the fact he's got kind of the likability, the national people liked him. I would go with the Anderson, although I think the Stroud is going to be the most popular jersey. There's some people saying Tank Dell jersey. Goodness gracious, y'all must be Cougs fans. And I'm sure it'll be in the shop. They actually got some jerseys in the shop. Some people have rules where you got to wear your body type. Like the fat guy can't wear the running back jersey. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it should be fun. It's an interesting time. The next big event for us is going to be when the schedule comes out, and there will be Case Keenum jerseys. I know he's joking. Cebu's joking, but there will be Case Keenum jerseys. I can 100% guarantee that. There's going to be some Petrie, Stingley. 2 years ago, there was no option in the jersey shop unless you wanted to go get a David Johnson or a Brandon Cooks. I mean, they've come a long way. The billboard looks better. I always talk about the billboard and, having faces of the franchise and stuff like that. They've definitely done a good job in a really, really short time. And next week, we'll know what's up with the jerseys. And if you happen to, a Toho jersey. Okay. I think you might be getting ahead of yourself there. I don't know if I would go that far. There's too many good options to be doing that. Although that is a pretty sick back of a jersey. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Keep listening to In the Loop. We got a lot of stuff on deck, and that's what nobody's talking about. HEB will be happy, no doubt. The commercials are actually going to be good this year. And you can get the jersey, and then they'll send you it once they know the number. Appreciate everyone for coming through. No matter what happens with the Texans, no matter what jersey numbers are worn, guys, just remember, we're all in this together. Times are more fun. No matter how you feel, there's at least some excitement around this squad. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Keep it coming. Appreciate everyone for coming through.
Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you